Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's That?
Sister Chat.
Okay, sisters. So, we are all fans of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air show. And recently, they just celebrated their 30th year since the launch of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And so they had their 30th reunion. And they had everybody there except for, of course, Uncle Phil, who passed away a few years ago. But they also had the original Aunt Viv on the show. And Will actually had a sit down with her. So if you're not familiar, there was some bad blood when she left. So they would go back and forth in media talking about each other. And they said some really, really hurtful things to each other. So first of all, are you guys excited about the reunion that they had? Sisters?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool, and so I didn't know that was going to be a thing. And I feel really old knowing that 30-year reunion. Like, what does that mean for me? Like, whoa! But it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too. I just I'll be totally 100. Like, I did not watch the reunion yet, but it doesn't look like it's an episode. And I kind of wish it was, like, rather than them just kind of being around chatting. Like, I want to see, like, what happens, like, if Aunt Viv, the two Aunt Vivs meet, or like, I don't know. Like, I wanted to see something.
Yeah. I didn't watch it either, but from the trailer, it looks like it's just like a sit down where has everybody been type of episode. So that is on my to-do list. I got to get HBO Max first, though. Might do the free trial and then cancel so I can watch it. Yes. So I did watch the Red Table Talk, but not with Jada. It was with Will Smith himself. And he was talking about the sit down that he had with Janet Hubert. I did watch the sit down that they had, and it was kind of tough for me to watch because to me it felt like there was a lot of hurt on both sides, but it felt like Will was taking a lot of it. He wasn't trying to defend himself. He was holding himself accountable to what was said, and he really validated her feelings. But before we get into that, did you guys get a chance to watch their sit down? How did you feel watching it, Cece?
Honestly, I really thought it was fascinating. I had seen that there was bad blood for a really long time, but I didn't really understand what happened with them. And so it was enlightening for me because you just hear about feuds and you don't necessarily know what people were experiencing. And it was really interesting to hear what they were experiencing, but also to kind of get Will's into his insights, right? Like, he sat with the psychologist or psychiatrist, I don't know which one she was, but he sits with this woman and he starts to really dig into some of his childhood wounds. And I thought, wow, it was really fascinating. One, that he is so aware and practiced in noticing some of those things. So it was really fascinating for me to watch.
Yeah. What about you, Sharice? How did you feel about his sit down with Janet, the original Aunt Viv? I keep wanting to say Vive, Aunt Viv.
Yeah, no, Aunt Vi was the other one. That was his mom, right? Like, Aunt Vi, or was that the one? That was the one. God, what's her name? I love her. She has like such a distinct voice.
Jennifer Lewis.
Jennifer Lewis. Yeah. Anyways, sorry, but anyways, yeah, I thought it was really interesting to watch. I kind of I understand why they did that, like why they taped it and why they showed us. But I kind of wish that they would have just did that in their own like space, because it felt like a conversation that needed to be had privately. And I felt like I was kind of like not supposed to be there a little bit. Like I was like, ooh, snap, ooh, ooh, you know? But I felt relieved for Aunt Viv, for Janet, because I've seen her do some other interviews and talk about what, you know, kind of like what happened, what she went through. And I feel like she didn't say anything really new, but it was new for Will. And it was really important for her to say that to him. And so I felt really relieved for her. And for Will, I felt like, you know, I honestly feel like he kind of continued the same pattern that he talks about later on at the red table, which kind of felt like a little bit painful to me to watch him. And I know he talked about like not taking the punches, but you know, it kind of felt a little uncomfortable for me to watch him like just be like, dang, yeah, I did that, this is my fault, you know. And I think Janet put a lot on him, and there comes a point where you have to take accountability also for what you decided in that moment in your life.
Especially you being the adult in that situation.
Well, not even like being the adult, but like I think that like there's a we all have a responsibility over our own life, you know, and so like there's a lot of stuff that can happen. And you know, people say things and all this stuff. 30 years is a long time. 27 years is a long time to continue with this narrative. And so, you know, like this narrative, this belief about oneself. And I think that a lot of what we witnessed with Janet speaking was these beliefs that she took on for her own self and started to believe about herself. She talks about being an angry Black woman and being a bitch and like all these things. And it's like all things that you like, these are roles and characters that you placed on yourself. And so I think it was I hope that it was really, you know, a relief for her. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's some more work that needs to get done.
Most definitely. I do believe this is a stepping stone for the both of them. But like you, it felt really weird watching because, like you say, it felt like it should have been behind closed doors. But I am actually happy that it was shown, because in a situation like that, Will could have been like, but you did this and you did this, but he didn't. And that's what I really like. I was very impressed with the way he just let her speak, because I felt like she was kind of being the victim and he was just taking it all. He was just taking it all in. And like you said, she just had this narrative about herself and she wasn't really taking accountability. She just kind of saying, well, you did this and it really hurt. And the fact that he was just listening, like he wasn't trying to be defensive. He just let her talk, let her speak her truth to him. And I felt like that really showed some maturity, because if it was me, I might have been like, but you did this and, you know, and you did that. Like we tend to do that back and forth, but he really just let her just get everything all out. He didn't try to defend his actions. He didn't try to be like, you know, that didn't happen. Like you said it on the Red Table Talk, he validated what he felt was true. And he just let her talk. And I really, really I appreciated that, because that helps me to think, when I'm talking with someone, maybe I should let them tell their truth and not try to defend. Because, you know, we're also, you know, people we as humans are very defensive, especially when you're talking about me. You know, if you're talking about me, what I did, but you're not talking about what you did, like we tend to be very defensive. And I found that to be so mature. But you had something to say, Cece?
I was just gonna say around this line about it feeling like a private conversation that you're sort of like watching like a fly on the wall. I almost like, as you were sort of talking, it hit me like, thank God that this was something that they reported publicly, because there's been so much drama with this entire situation for so long, there can be no mischaracterizations when everybody is watching the same thing. It's not, oh, well, we had a private conversation and Will said this or Janet said this. It's like, here's what happened. I mean, we live in a really weird voyeuristic world where maybe we certainly don't deserve it. It's not our business. But I think for airing out sake, it was really smart to do it this way. So there's this, I don't know if you guys have seen The Conversation. I'm switching this up just a smidge here, but Ray J and his wife did one, and then some reality stars did one. And the whole premise is like a reality show, but the whole premise is the two people come and sit down and they have some uncomfortable conversation and it's taped. And I just thought, what a bizarre way to run a reality show where you just come and yell at each other for hours. And then I got to watch this and it was like, oh, well, look at this being a successful conversation that aired and I can see the point. So it's just kind of interesting now as I'm looking back at it.
Yeah, I've heard of The Conversation, but I've never watched it. What happened?
Girl, he was married and then they was getting a divorce and then they was staying together again. And I don't know what the situation is now, but it was terrible, their version of The Conversation. I mean, it was not good.
That just seems like it would be more for the ratings, not really for clearing the air, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't want to take too much away from Will and them, but I mean, their situation was really bad, right? They had this really big public fight where he had abandoned her on the side of the road in Las Vegas and she was pregnant or she just had a baby or something. And that was like the end of their relationship. And then this was them getting back together. And as they were describing the marketing for it, they were saying, you know, this is a real and raw conversation and they're going to talk out their issues and it's going to allow them to put it all out there. And they didn't, like, the thing I liked about what Will and Janet did is that even though we didn't see the psychologist was on site. And if things happened and they needed someone to intervene, they would have that, where the conversation, there was none of that. It was just sort of their entourages you see at the very beginning, but it's just the two of them and it didn't go well. So it's kind of like, what if you had that buffer? So I really think that they did a really good job setting this conversation up, especially knowing how toxic this relationship has been over time.
Well, and I think that's one of the major differences in like reality TV versus like scripted TV is that scripted TV, the producers know and are very aware of like all of the moving parts. They understand all the risks that might happen. So they take those proper precautions. And Will and Janet both coming from that sort of scripted world, they even though it is a talk show, sort of kind of, I guess, a reality show, they definitely still, you know, use those other skills from like scripted TV versus reality TV, which is all about like quick, how fast can we get something shot? How quick can we get it done? Who's going to be in there? Like, let's make it happen. And so sometimes those things fall through the cracks. It's definitely like, even like we had an episode a couple of weeks ago where we talked about cheaters. I think they should have a psychologist or psychiatrist on set. Like, I've been on sets where just as even as a background person, they have someone there, like they have a psychologist, they have obviously they have like emergency care, and they have a union rep. So if anything goes wrong, like you always have somebody to talk to, but I'm not sure like what the reality TV world offers. So anyways, I agree with you though. I think it was really good to have that, the doctor on there.
Yes. So I was going to say that. So they did have the psychiatrist, I think she is, the therapist there on set in case they need it, which I thought was very, very, very helpful, and showed that they were really taking into considerations everybody's feelings and how, you know, they may need that break or they may need that extra support. So I really appreciated that as well. So speaking of psychiatrists, like I said, Will Smith did the Red Table Talk, but Jada was nowhere in sight. It was his Red Table Talk. And he had the same psychiatrist that was forgive me if she was a psychologist, but the same therapist who was on set with him and Janet as they, talked about, their issues. And so this Red Table Talk was very enlightening for me, because this is where Will got to actually speak his truth and what was causing him to react that way when he was younger. Like he's able to give his truth and speak his truth at the Red Table. Like I said, he allowed Janet to speak her truth, and now it was his turn without invalidating Janet's truth, but allowing him to get, the reason why, his why out, or maybe the reason why his way out, whatever. So with all that saying, one thing that I learned about Will Smith is we've always known he was a jokester, but he's always been like that since he was younger. He always wanted to crack jokes. He always wanted to have fun. He wanted to be silly. He was the entertainer of his family because of his childhood. We learned, and I believe he said this before, but we also learned it again on the Red Table Talk, that his dad was very abusive to his mom. And so for him to be able to protect his mom, he wanted to make sure that his dad was entertained. And he's always used that same system in his whole life. Whenever something felt threatening to him, he would joke about it, or he would find something funny, like he would try to be silly. And he said that that's what happened when, he was on set with the Fresh Prince cast. Did you guys find anything enlightening that you learned about Will Smith on the Red Table Talk he did?
Well, I think it was, I don't know if it was necessarily or not. It was something particularly about Will Smith, but more so about like just the way that performers compute their experiences. And there's a very thin line. I think I mentioned it before on here. There's a very real line, I should say, between performer, character, and psychology. And you guys know, like, I was actually going to go to school for psychology, or maybe y'all don't know. I don't know. Do y'all know that? I wanted to double major in psychology at one point, and theater, because I wanted to know, like, what is it about, like, the acting world that connects, that feels so connected to, like, our real life, and then to this other third party's life. So I just thought it was really interesting that he was able, like Cece said earlier, like, he was so aware, and he was able to connect this thing from his childhood that happened to thing that happened in his career as a young person. And then again, throughout his life, he mentioned all these relationships with women that have, kind of had issues and trouble. And how he has been able to use therapy, and I guess, like, just getting his mental health in sort of, I guess he's still working on it, where, as we all are, work in progress, but getting it in order so that he could actually figure out what the issue was, and then try to solve the problem. So it was really interesting to me, the way that all those puzzle pieces sort of fit together. I don't think, it's like, I always wonder, like, how does a performer become a performer? Like, is it because, like, I don't necessarily believe, like, oh, you were born to be a performer, darling. Like, no, I think something happened at some point that made someone go, okay, this is what I need to do because it gives me this feeling or this reaction. And so that is just really interesting, the way that connected.
Most comedians say that they became comedians because they had, like, really troubled childhoods, and, like, a lot was going on, so they use comedy to kind of as like an outlet for them. I've heard a lot of comedians say that. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's true. And a lot of performers, even, serious actors. And when I say serious, I don't mean like he's not serious. Like, it's just like, that's what the name of it. But like even serious actors, they've said like, oh, well, I want, and myself included, like, I want to be able to escape my reality for a few minutes and share someone else's story, or allow audiences to escape their reality and come into someone else's story. And a lot of entertainment is about escapism. Like we deal with all of these things all day long. And when you get to connect or escape, those are the two things that usually play a part in like why you want to watch something or, go to whatever.
Right. And he did say that he's been hours and hours of therapy. Like he's been working on himself a long time. So Cece, you have anything to add?
Well, they say that what you experience in life is sort of mirroring back something to you, right? And so I thought it was so interesting that I came across Will's Red Table Talk about his healing journey with Janet. And yeah, there were plenty of insights about him, but it was really interesting for me, the insights I was seeing for myself, right? So right now I'm actually going through a process. One of my mentors, James McNeil, he's on the spiritual side of things. I'm in one of his 30-day programs, and a huge part of that is healing from some of the things that have happened in your past, right? And so I'm currently going through, quote, the purification process, which is all about noticing the negative energies, the negative emotions that you've held on to, and I'm watching Will and I'm going, oh my gosh, like this woman has held on to this hatred of him for 30 years. And then when I'm going through my own exercises and I'm seeing things come up for me from when I'm in first grade and from when I'm in third grade and, things that happened in our family and, family feuds and all of these other things that I didn't notice that I had been carrying until I sat down with a piece of paper and started just allowing it to come out. And so it was really fascinating for me as I am healing some of those things. And it was cool to watch that. I also think it was really interesting that he chose to sit down and have this conversation. I think Janet really needed that for her healing. I don't know that he necessarily needed that. And that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like, I don't need to sit down and have conversations with people about how they've hurt me in the past. I can work through some of those processes myself and clear myself of that energy. And I think that is really powerful. So it was really cool for me. It felt like a really good mirroring exchange because I'm right in the thick of this process now, crossing through all of these experiences. It was really cool to kind of see that play out with someone else as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you just said, because you kind of said something that was a little bit, it was like a flip-flop of like what they did. So you mentioned that like you don't need to sit down with someone and have them talk to them about how they've hurt you. But I think what Will did was kind of sit there and talk to her about how he hurt her or how she perceived he hurt her. Because what I actually think happened is that Janet held on to the name of like person that was to blame, but he wasn't actually the person to blame, because you have to remember, like when you're in these situations, you've got producers, you've got like he see what the deal was that they offered her, and I'm sure he didn't, because they don't usually discuss other people's contracts with each other. Like, so did he play a role? Probably, but was it like the only person who did this? Like, probably not. So I think it was interesting to see him actually just sit there and let her do that. And yeah. I wonder how we would have felt if he didn't do the Red Table Talk following it, and if it would have felt like, oh, she's just doing this thing again. Like, would it have felt resolved? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean, because I saw their sit down before I saw the Red Table Talk, and I was like, dang, she's really like putting all the blame on him, and he's just sitting there. He's not like defending himself. He's just letting her speak. And I'm happy he did the red table talk, because it's like, okay, I understand why you allowed her to speak. And I understand why, he really was able to show his accountability for the situation. It felt like she wasn't being accountable. She kept putting that blame. And to her own story, he said he didn't know about the offer. He didn't know what was going on in her life at the time. She was in an abusive relationship. She just had a baby. Like, she had stopped talking to the whole cast. Like, he didn't know what was going on in her life. And he said he felt threatened. Like, at one point, she was motherly to him. And then all of a sudden, you're going to stop talking to me, talking to the whole cast. We don't know what's going on. So maybe he had started, like, I don't want to say that, this is what happened, but maybe, when somebody stops talking to you, you start putting your defenses up, like, okay, am I doing, like, did I do something wrong to you? Well, I'm just not going to deal with you. And she might have been taking that on, thinking, well, he don't like me. The whole thing was a whole big old mess,
It's like a cautionary tale, right? Like, this is what happens when you allow something to fester for such a long period of time. Because it was uncomfortable listening to her tell him, like, you're the reason that my family name is ruined. You're the reason that my career is over. I mean, this is a woman who was so talented and, such an incredible, multi-talented, multi-passionate woman. And sure, things went wrong on this set, things went bad. But if you continue to repeat the story that people will not hire you, that you're not hireable, that you are not good enough, that you are being perceived a certain way, that's how you show up at life. Rev Ike always says, you have to meet, the way you meet life is how life will meet you. And so if you keep showing up, with the expectation that you can't get ahead, you won't, and so it's so hard because it's very clear that she had not worked through any of it. It was bubbling at the surface because it had been festering for so long. And I am so glad that Will did such a good job of letting her have that moment, because it was not about him. It was not about him. Right. She needed to get that out. She needed to express that. She needed to feel heard. That moment wasn't about him, because there's really nothing he could have said to defend himself that would have made her feel better. Right? He needed to know exactly what it was that she experienced. And that's what that was about. So, it's a true cautionary tale. If you're holding on to things that are festering underneath the surface, if you don't do anything about it, where will you be a year from now, 5 years from now, 30 years from now, right? What will that look like? Well, how will that shape all of your experiences in your life and the way you show up in this world? It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's like how they say.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go.
I was just gonna say, it's like how they say, you holding on to all this hurt, and they are going on with their life. He became this huge superstar, and she just became this bitter person, and she held on to that for so long. It didn't help her holding on to that. So you got to let it go. You have to come to a point where you just let it go. And I hope this has allowed her to let it go, and she's able to move towards healing, because she has a long way to go. I really feel she has a long way to go, but maybe this is the first step to her healing.
Yeah, and I think that it's definitely obviously easier said than done, like letting things go like that. And the industry is very cruel. It really is. So if people blackballed her, they, didn't want to hire her or whatever, there probably was some truth to that. That, I'm sure that, that did actually happen to her. But also you got to remember that she also said that she was in a place where she had been, she was in an abusive relationship. She was in a space where probably her mindset, she said she didn't feel like she had any safe place to go. There was no safe haven for her. And so when you've been told by your partner that you're not good enough, and then, they didn't fire her, they gave her a lowball offer, which basically is telling, a 10-month, you can work 10 weeks, which is two months, and you can't work anywhere else. You're undervaluing me, and now when I go out into the world, I'm putting that value that you put on to me on myself. And now, so she's dealing with sort of this kind of this mesh of like identity, like who am I? Am I not valued by the world? Honestly, I'm so glad that she's still here today, because that's the type of thing that could honestly drive somebody to do something that would not be useful to them at all. So for anybody who is watching, if you are ever going through something like that, you know, there are hotlines that you can call, there are people that you can talk to, find somebody that you trust, because like it is the industry by itself, it feels very lonely. Being in an abusive relationship feels very lonely. You know, the important thing to know is like, you're not alone. And like, if you need to find, you know, a unit for you to be around, like find your sisterhood tribe, you know what I mean? Like you gotta find it, or your brotherhood if you do. But I will say,
go ahead.
I will say this too. I think that Will did an amazing job of doing this, I won't say trick, but like, yeah, trick, I guess, of the acting world, which is to always make your scene partner look amazing. Make your scene partner look good. If he didn't do this red table talk, and if he wasn't quiet when she was talking, that would have made her look like even like worse. like what she said people thought she was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think I commend Will Smith for doing that, and presenting in a way that was able to make both of them heard, and neither of them look like horrible people. I don't think either of them are horrible people. I think some drama happened and life happened and things got blown out of proportion, and hopefully there's some healing for them underway.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So on that note, I think we can end it there. Do you guys have any last thoughts on the situation? See, you got something going on.
I'm just preparing for the screen, the computer screen. Look, I just have to say, you have, and I'm speaking to whoever's watching this now, is you have more accountability in your life than you probably believe. And you can take hold of yourself and your situation and decide, right? You have to make a decision on what moving forward looks like for you. You can choose to sit and to fester and to be, blame other people for all of the things that happen in your life. But look, I don't know anybody who's been handed a really great deal, right? We look at people, we see these stars, we think, oh, they've got these magnificent lives. And then when they start to share, you see, oh, they're just like me. They've gone through the same kind of crap. We all have crap, but how we move on from that, how we bounce back from that, how we move forward in our lives, that's really on us. The onus is on us. We can't necessarily change what happens to us, but our reaction and what we do moving forward is on us. And so I really encourage you, if you've got some deep wounds, you've got some deep hurts, to do that inner work, to figure it out, right? Maybe that looks like therapy, maybe that looks like coaching, maybe that looks like journaling, whatever that process is for you, but go out there and heal yourself of those things, because the weight being lifted from you, right? Releasing those burdens and being able to step into a lighter, brighter, more excited, right? Version of yourself, that's possible. That's possible. And so I just want to encourage you, if you find yourself, and you're not alone, look, I've been there, I'm going through the process now, I'm letting go of some shit, right? But you have to be willing to. You have to be willing to. I don't want you to be, OG Aunt Viv in this situation, okay? So that's my final note.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I'll just say this, like, they say hindsight is 2020, and not the year 2020, hopefully. It's 2020 vision, right? And it's like, sometimes when you're in that moment, you're in the heated moment, you have a lot of stuff going on. it's important for you to take time to reflect and really think about, like, not just how something has affected you, but also how you might have affected someone else. And if you need to let things go, let it go. If you need to do some manifestation, burn some past hurts, do your stuff, y'all. Like, there's so many ways to release. Just like a quick funny story. A couple of years ago, my friends and I, we got together and we did like this little ceremony, just this little ritual in my kitchen on a pan that we had made biscuits on. It was a little oily. I wouldn't recommend that. But anyways, we wrote down all of the things that had hurt us, all of the people that had hurt us, the names, what they did, all this stuff. And we took these pieces of paper and we ripped it up and we threw it into this pan and we set it on fire right in the middle of my kitchen. And it was one of the most freeing things that we've ever done. And then after that, like Cece said, we journaled and we put it about what were our goals for the next 5 years? What were the things that we wanted out of life? What were the things that we were going to do? And can I tell you that literally my friends and I accomplished almost every single one of our goals that we've had that we wrote down on that list after we had released that past hurt, that pain. So sometimes, like, you got to get out of your own way and just like let that ish go, burn that pain, and and figure out what you want for your newness, for your life. That's
Word.
it.
So true.
Word. I love the burning too, by the way. That's one of the things one of my favorite strategies. I burnt the letter 2 days ago. It just feels so good. It feels so good to just let it go, to watch it turn to ash, and then to decide. And I think one of the things that's really important that Tree sort of illustrated is when you get rid of stuff, you create a vacuum. So you want to decide what you want to replace that with, right? And so I'm letting go of all of this. This is what I want to replace it with. Like, these are all the good things that I want to see in my life. These are the new emotions that I want to be focused on. So really making sure that you're releasing, but you're also filling that vacuum with the things that you want, because something's going to fill that space, right? And you don't want it to get filled with things that are not intentional. But I totally agree.
Shelly?
All right. I'm about to go burn some papers now.
We should have a 2020 burn party. Like, we're doing Secret Sister, but we should have a 2020 burn party, right? Like, let's leave whatever needs to be left behind in 2020 for the new year. We all need to like bring our list or spend some time playing some music together on a Zoom or something. Maybe we do it as a sister. I don't know, but we should totally have a burn party and let some shit go as we move into this new year.
Yes.
Burn, baby, burn. Burn,
yes.
baby, burn.
I love it. Great idea.
All right, you guys, we are having way too much fun right now. Okay. Well, we would love to thank you guys for joining us tonight on our show. Please, please, please don't forget to comment below. How do you think, did you watch the Red Table Talk? Did you watch the reunion? Let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. Comment, subscribe, like, share, let everybody know about the sisterhood. And if you would like to join the sisterhood, just click that subscribe button and hit the notifications button so you will know every time we go live or we upload a video. Until then, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Oh, yeah, that.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is this week. So yeah, you might want to burn some things so you can be thankful for all the good things and maybe some bad things that help you to get to the good things.
Amen.
And on that note, we would like to thank you for joining What's That?
Sister Chat.
We will talk with you later. Bye.
Peace.